What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. I'm the Beast, Ryan London. My partner in crime, Brendan O'Joy, unfortunately, he's got a bunch of stuff he's got to take care of this week. So he's not joining me on the pod, but it's okay. I believe post-game from Hard Rock, he will join me for a post-game wrap-up, and we'll get Brendan's take on things. Before we get started, though, as Miami gets set to take on Florida State, recording this Friday evening. It's been a long week, so I'm sorry that we didn't deliver this podcast earlier in the week, but here we are, nonetheless. Before we get going, though, I would be remiss if I did not send my deeply felt condolences to the Fletcher family. If you have not heard, Mark Fletcher Jr., the Canes' unbelievable running back, lost his dad, Mark Fletcher Sr., who just an amazing soul in the South Florida community, passed away. And I just was so stunned by the news. I've seen his dad outside the locker room and in the bowels of the stadium a bunch of times over the last couple of years. Met him a couple of times. Brandon's introduced me. Just an amazing man, and so sad to hear. And as we send our condolences and our thoughts and our prayers and hope that the family can find some healing, and as we say in Judaism, may his memory be a blessing. You know, I got 27 texts from people asking me, hey, is Mark Fletcher going to play? And I didn't even respond. Because in times like this, whether he plays or doesn't play, it's not important. It really isn't. Even if Miami were in the national championship game and Mark Fletcher's dad had passed away, it's just sometimes there's things more important than football. And if Mark needs to be with his family, if he's hurting too much, if he's not going to play in this game, then more power to him. If he decides to play because he believes in things above him, and somehow he's going to honor his dad by playing, whatever. Again, up to him, but should not be our concern at this point in time is whether the kid's going to play in a football game, because football, listen, I know it's mightily important to all of us, and it creates a lot of emotion and fervor in our lives, but in the grand scheme of things, not important. It's a game. So I don't really know if Mark Fletcher is going to play. The University of Miami, I don't believe, has said anything, nor should they have to. I'm sure it'll be a game time announcement, what have you, or may not. We may see him come into the game, or we may not see him at the stadium at all. And it doesn't really matter. So that's that. A couple other things before we get going with Miami and Florida State. I just wanted to thank everyone down at the University of Miami with the student radio station 90.5 WVUM, starting with Sylvia, the GM, and Annabelle and everybody else down there who allowed me to sit in for a DJ shift. I did it on Thursday. That would be yesterday, since I'm recording the podcast on Friday. Spun some tunes from 90s alternative from basically the old playlist when I was a DJ on WVUM. And I had a blast. It was great to get back in the saddle. And, it's just always great I don't get down to campus enough. Ever since I stopped covering the team every single day, and ever since it hasn't been my job to get down to campus every day from my humble abode up in central Broward County. I don't get down to my alma mater enough. So every time I get the opportunity to get down there, see all the new beautiful buildings, and just see the kids walking around. I have a Cam Ward for Heisman shirt. It's a great shirt, by the way. If you're looking for it, this is not a paid endorsement, but the Lebitard show made a great shirt. Log on to, I think it's lebitardaf.com, lebitardaf.com. It's a great Cam Ward for Heisman shirt. I was wearing that around campus, and it was getting some looks. It was getting some of the students were pretty pumped up about the shirt. So I think there's a lot of excitement about Cam Ward and this team right now on campus at the University of Miami. So let's dive in. The University of Miami coming off another game where we had replay officials involved and what have you, but Miami beats Louisville. Miami is 7-0. Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo are breaking every record known to man that's held at the University of Miami. And it's just unbelievable what they are doing. This offense, I don't think there's any other way to compare this offense than by saying it's like a video game. Sure, there might be an interception here, maybe a fumble there, and every once in a while we may have to get a punt. But for the most part, when they want to drive down the field and score, they can. They can score at will, and they've done it in 7 games this year. And the way in which they do it is literally like a video game. Like Cam Ward just does things that can't be taught, right? Like the way he is able to deliver the football to his receivers or whoever's on the end of the pass is it's uncanny. It's like he has eyes, not just in the back of his head, but on the side of his head, like everywhere. I don't understand it. I would compare it to, Patrick Mahomes. I would compare it to Josh Allen. And I'm not projecting Cam Ward to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, although he could be. I'm not saying he won't be. I'm just saying that's like when I think of the way he's able to improvise and make plays. But it's not just that, because there's plenty of quarterbacks that can improvise and make plays. But the way he reads defenses, the way he knows where his receivers are going to be, and not just that, because that comes through practice, right? That comes through reps on Green Tree. It's also he knows what the defense is going to do and how they're going to react to what play they're running. It's at a level I have not witnessed. We've had great quarterbacks at the University of Miami, and I know this has been an argument the last couple of weeks: is where does Cam Ward fit in? And listen, my favorite University of Miami, my 2 favorite players. Okay, I have 3 favorite players all time at the University of Miami. Rowan Marley, number 2, the Rat. Why? Because he was tenacious for his size, but also because he's a son of Bob Marley, who's I look up to in some sort of religious way. But also, from that 2001 team, just Ed Reed and Ken Dorsey. I love those guys. And Ken, especially Ken, because when I was a sideline reporter on the broadcast, every Wednesday I would get to kind of sit in the communications office behind closed doors with Ken Dorsey and just talk with him, just talk about what he was thinking about the upcoming game and what he saw on film and just stuff behind the scenes that no one else really got to have that conversation with him. And so I love Ken, and I think Ken is arguably the greatest quarterback that played at the University of Miami. Because of how he was able to be a student of the game and pick apart defenses and know where his guys were going to be. And I think Cam Ward is up there, if not beyond Ken Dorsey. The only other 2 quarterbacks you could even put in the same league as Cam Ward, or 3 quarterbacks, would be Jim Kelly, Vinny Testaverde, and Bernie Kosar. But again, Bernie did a lot with his legs at the time, but the game was so different back then. We're talking 40 years ago, that I'm not even sure it's fair to compare, right? Because the game has completely changed. So I think we've entered into a new realm as far as University of Miami quarterback play. I'm just, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and it's you wish that you had Cam Ward for more than a year, right? Because you could have. We're talking, a situation where you could have possibly, if you got him young enough and got and whatever, where maybe you could have reeled off a couple of national championships with a Cam Ward. And hopefully it ends with one this year. But it's just one of those things where you wish you had him for longer, because this guy is unbelievable. And listen, I'm not down at every day, but I do get a chance to talk to Cam Ward because he comes in to the press conferences after every game. They bring him in. So I've asked him plenty of questions and sat there and talked to him. And there's his demeanor for a starting quarterback. It just, every time I smile every time, because he just has this, hey man, like, I'm just playing ball. I'm doing the best I can. Like, I think he's so humble, I think is what I'm trying to say, is like, he will tell you, he'll come in after a game where they had 500 yards of offense, and he'll be like, yeah, I don't think I played that great. Like, there's a lot that I have to go watch on film that I have to fix. He's just got that personality where I don't think he's ever satisfied with his performance. He always thinks he can do better. And not only that, he's just a humble person. And yeah, he'll say some things in the media. Yeah, I think I'm the best quarterback in the country, or he'll do his little celebration, whatever. And he kind of plays that up for the cameras, but behind the scenes, he's like the most humble dude you would ever meet. And I think it is that nature of being humble that keeps him level-headed, but also keeps him grinding, because he never feels like he's played his best game. That keeps him getting better, because he constantly works to get to that perfect game, which I don't think in his mind he'll ever get to. I think we're going to see Cam Ward playing in the next level in the NFL, and he's going to go torch some team on Sunday, and he's going to come into the press conference and say, yeah, I don't think I played my best game. It's just, that's his attitude. That's his mentality. And I think that's what's going to keep him working and getting better and constantly improving. It's just uncanny. I'll be honest with you, when it's all said and done, and we've got plenty of games left, he may be the best quarterback to ever play at the University of Miami. Like, that I can definitely conceive of that. Feel free to hit us in the comments on that one, or follow me social media on X at Miami Radio Beast. Hit me up with that one, what you think about that. And I think a lot of it's not just, listen, he's special, but Xavier Restrepo plays into it, because Xavier has the same humble nature, right? The guy's making catches on his ass. The guy is, making catches that you don't think he can make. He's not the fastest. He's not the tallest. He can't jump the highest, but he's the best wide receiver on the team, and one of the best in the country. And I am a voter for the Biletnikoff Award, and I can tell you right now who I'm voting for, and his name is Xavier Restrepo, okay? My vote for the Biletnikoff Award is going to Xavier Restrepo, because listen, we've seen great receivers. I've covered them all at the University of Miami. I've covered them all. And I've seen, guys that are in the Hall of Fame, like Andre Johnson and Michael Irvin and Reggie Wayne and everybody else who is the best of the best of all time and who played at the University of Miami. And Xavier Restrepo is right up there with all of them. This isn't like a one-year wonder. This isn't like a guy that, had a good season, but, will flame out. No, this is the real deal. And again, listen, he's extremely religious, and he'll always give credit to God. And I admire that. But it's his hard work, and it's his humble nature that has made him as good as he is. And I think he has a chip on his shoulder, right? That he's not the fastest, the tallest, can jump the highest. I think he has a chip on his shoulder, which makes him good. And, then you factor in the leaps that Isaiah Horton has taken, as well as Jacoby George, if he can stop getting penalties, and then add Sam Brown to the mix, and the tight ends, and the way the offensive line is playing, and add the running game into the mix. And that's what makes this offense potent. Now, I know that you want to talk about the defense, and we're going to do that. but we will do it on the other side. We're going to break down what's wrong with this defense, and we got to talk about Florida State because they're a freaking mess. So we will do that and more on the other side. You're listening and watching The Real Ones. And we are back here on the Real Ones Canes podcast. It's the Beast, Brian Lennon. Brandon O'Doy is off this week. He will join me on the recap show after Miami takes on the Florida State Seminoles at Hard Rock Stadium. 7 p.m. primetime match. Before we get to the defense in Florida State, you know what I find kind of maddening and upsetting is, one, the University of Miami sent out an email today, and today is Friday, that limited tickets were still available for the game, which for a Miami-Florida State game should not be the case. And two, I went on just regular Ticketmaster, and there was plenty of tickets available, and you could get in on Ticketmaster, not including the $7 billion worth of fees, but for about $110. And then I was like, oh, I wonder what the secondary market was doing. So I started logging onto the secondary market websites. You can get in, you can get a pretty good seat, like maybe upper deck, but like pretty close to middle of the field, upper deck for under $100. Under $100 to get into Miami and Florida State. If you're listening to this or watching this right now and you're not going to the game, why? Get to the game. I mean, parking's a bit of an issue, but you'll find it somewhere. Parking is such an... I know someone, I'm not mentioning names, who had 4 club seats, like actually in like one of those like special club suite situation at the corner of the stadium, and a parking pass. And he sold his parking pass for more than the 4 seats combined. People just want to be able to park close to the stadium because after they built a racetrack and a tennis center and everything else, the parking is diminished at Hard Rock Stadium. All right, let's get into we got to talk about this defense. Here's the deal. I really believe the defensive line is really good, right? Between Bain and Barron and Barrow and everybody else on the defensive line, Mesidor. I really think they're good up front. I don't think there's an issue, and they've got a bunch of other guys that they're bringing along that can get in there and back those guys up. They've got a good rotation, so I don't think we have to worry about the defensive line. The linebackers, whether it's Kiko and Wesley or Popo or whoever they get in there, they've been missing some tackles. I'll be honest with you. I think all those guys are great players. And I think they play with a tenacity, and I think they know where to be. The problem is they have not been tackling well. So that has to get fixed. And I don't know if it will be. But where we really run into issues is the defensive backfield, right? It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And I know that they started working in Zaquan Patterson last game, and he's going to get even more playing time this game. I know the press asked Mario about Damari Brown. Listen, I can tell you this, okay? And I don't know if I think Brandon and I told you this on a previous podcast. Brandon and I saw Damari Brown in a boot on a scooter, like the last home game. He was wheeling his way through the back of the press box. I'm not sure who saw him and who didn't. He ain't coming back anytime soon, if at all this season. I know Mario said maybe by the end of the season, but Mario's going to Mario when it comes to injuries. So I would not count on Damari Brown anytime soon. That dude is he's injured. Whatever he's got going on in his leg, it's definitely injured. So then what do you do? I mean, no one has been really great. Like 25, Jadis Richard, not been good, right? Our old friend, number 7, Jaden Harris, not been good. Deani Hill, Not been good. Transfer from Marshall. Should know the system. Not been good. No one has been good. Mish Powell is supposed to be the senior back there. That's the captain. And I think he is, but I'm not sure he's good enough in order to be the guy we need him to be. I'm not sure. I thought he was, but then he trailed off. The guy that has, been the guy that has been, Daryl Porter Jr. obviously has been good, but OJ Frederick is the guy that every time he gets out there, they don't want to pass his way, and if they do, he's not going to let it get caught. And he's a freshman, and that doesn't bode well. Like when a freshman comes in that you didn't even think was going to play at all, and he's the most stable guy back there, you've got an issue. They asked Lance Guidry this week. I was watching the press conference live, and there was multiple questions about the defensive backs and the defense. And listen, Lance, I really like Lance, and I think he's a good coach. But when he basically here, let me put it into you my terms, okay? They spent a lot of money on this team. A ton of money in NIL money, like more money than you even can know of, and in ways that you don't know about that we'll discuss at some later time. But they did not spend enough money, or didn't have enough money, or the salary cap did not allow them to spend the money on the back end, because it unfortunately, there's nothing like Lance Guidry said, what we got is what we got, kids. We can't make any trades. And he basically said that, there's no one else on the roster right now, in the 2 deep or 3 deep, that I can put in there to make it better. He's like, I'm playing the best guys that we have. There's no one else on my bench that can, or in any of these defensive back meeting rooms, that can come in and help out at this point. What you've seen so far, the personnel that you've seen, the positions they've been playing, who's gotten in, that's it. That's what we got. That's what you're playing with. So the only way this defense is going to work is if they get to the quarterback from the front, and if the linebackers do their job and tackle. And we're just going to have to, hold our breath every time there's a deep pass or something that involves a secondary, because this is the best it's going to get. It's basically going to have to be a bend, don't break situation, right? Just try to keep the guy in front of you, try to get him on the ground, and play the next play. Because that's how the team was constructed. So if you're happy about all the additions that got made all over the field, but not happy about the defensive backfield, I'm sorry, but you only have so much money to spend in the NIL situation, right? And they spent it shoring up the defensive line and the offensive line, and Cam Ward cost a fortune, and Damian Martinez took a lot of money, and you had to get Sam Brown in here, and then other guys, you had to pay other guys, and welcome to professional football. That's what we got, right? If you go watch your NFL teams on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, every once in a while, you know what I'm talking about. If you watch a professional football, you'll see that there's just positions that a team is not good enough at. Why? Because you can only spend so much money, you can only make so many moves, you can only draft so many players. And now that's happened in college football. It's the exact same thing. You can only recruit so many players, you can only get so many players in the transfer portal, you can only spend so much money. That's where you are. And unfortunately, the defensive backfield is, it's not low rent, but it's just not, it's not the extravagance that you have in other positions throughout the team. So you're going to have to live with it. Now, listen, could they get better? Could they, learn from their mistakes? Could they tackle better? Could Lance Guidry scheme it up a little bit better? Maybe. But I don't have a lot of hope that that's going to happen. I'm just kind of resigned to the fact that this is how it's going to be. That what you see is what you get. And I'll be honest with you. Let's think about this. And I'm trying not to be that guy. But let's think about what's left on the schedule, right? You got Florida State, you got Duke, you got Georgia Tech, you got Wake Forest, you got Syracuse. Now, the one quarterback I really thought was going to be the guy to worry about in torching the University of Miami, possibly with the secondary, was the last game of the year up at Syracuse in the Dome and Kyle McCord. Except he threw like 110 interceptions the other night. So evidently he's not perfect either. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to have a great game against the University of Miami. I don't know, but I'm not as scared. After I saw him have that kind of game against Pittsburgh, I'm like, okay. Like, I'm not writing him off because he's really good, but on the other hand, I'm not completely scared either. There's just nothing left on the schedule until you get to maybe the ACC championship game that really scares me. As far as I have to worry that this Miami secondary is going to be the problem and you lose a game. Now, it's still possible Miami can lose a game. I'm not saying that because, things can happen. It's college football, right? Like Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Like, things can happen. So I'm not saying that this team is definitely going to run the table. But I'm also telling you that there's no opponent ahead of me that scares me. So let's talk about the game against Florida State. They're woeful. They're terrible. DJ Uiagalelei is out with a finger injury. That means they're going to start Glenn. He's not very good at all. Like, Brock Glenn has shown me really nothing. He's played a couple games so far. He is 32 of 64, so about 52, exactly 50% for 358 yards. His average throw is his average completion is 5.3 yards. The long of 35, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's been sacked 5 times. He's not great. A matter of fact, they brought in Luke Kromahek. There we go. The freshman in the last game because it wasn't going well. So, I really, to be honest with you, I thought that I always liked Toafili, their running back, and I thought him and Cam Davis would be a good 1-2 punch, and that really hasn't come to fruition. Listen, their offense is not good. They have 10 total touchdowns. Okay, like, they're really bad. Like, Florida State, I'm not just saying this because I don't like them, but they're literally, maybe the worst Power 5 team in the country. They're terrible. And the interesting thing to me is I know they have athletes on the team. Like, I know they have players. So what the hell happened? Like, what happened? I mean, listen, the transfer portal killed them and the draft killed them. I get all that. But, like, suddenly Mike Norvell can't coach? Or is it that they had so much talent last year that it was kind of like a Larry Coker situation where, like, he just kind of, made sure the wheels stayed on the bus while the players did their thing, right? And I'll be honest with you, I talked to a pretty big Florida State booster the other night. I happen to know. He actually lives in my neighborhood. And I ran across him. And I was just like, hey, man, what's going on up there? He's like, yeah, it's a mess and can't get rid of him. We owe him too much money, and the coaching staff doesn't seem to be that great. There's a couple of guys that have been around, but other than that, not great. They're pretty down up there in Tallahassee. So, I know they say throw out the records when rivalry. Like, if Florida State beats Miami tomorrow, and when I'm recording this on Friday night, like, I'll be embarrassed. Like, you will see me with a classic beast post-game rant with Pepto-Bismol if Miami loses to Florida State, because I've watched a lot of their games this year. Like, they are woeful, like, woefully bad. And the way Miami's playing, seriously, I'm not going to be that idiot that's like, oh, if Miami loses to Florida State, I'm going to eat dog poo. No, I'm not stupid, okay? Like, you have to be an idiot. Like, no thanks. I'm good with not catching Giardia and a parasite. But, like, Miami should beat Florida State. Like, it shouldn't shouldn't be an issue, right? Like we're all on the same page on that. Like I know some of you are going to be like, "Oh, Miami should win by 50." Let just relax, okay? Like calm down there. Don't be cocky Canes fan. No one likes cocky Canes fan. No one. Not even cocky Canes fans like other cocky Canes fans. It's just like it's not a thing we like. The Canes are favored by 21 points. I just can't. It's hard for me to fathom Miami and Florida State, and Miami's favored by 21 points. I can't do it now, but I'm going to go back and look to see what the spread was on like some of those games back in like 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, just to see what the spreads were. But 21 points for a rivalry game is ridiculous. So I really fully expect Miami to win. The other thing about this game is there's going to be 7 million recruits there. And I'm not going to say this is the most important game in like Miami program history as far as recruiting goes, but it's flipping season. And there's a bunch of guys that are going to be at the game that are committed elsewhere. And if Miami wins this game and it's a great environment and Mario and his staff are able to do this thing, there's a good chance they can start picking off guys that are committed elsewhere from this game because there's just going to be so many guys in attendance. So, that's an extra added, not on the players, but the coaching staff has got to be thinking about that in the back of their mind as they're looking around the stadium and seeing 150 recruits in the stands. Now, Florida tried to do that for the Miami and Florida game. Didn't work out so well, did it? No. Now, as it turns out, Florida's rebounded a little bit, and they're not as horrible as we thought they might be. But, Miami's putting a lot of stock. Miami is definitely loading up on a bunch of recruits to be there against Florida State. So this game is going to be extremely pivotal when it comes to recruiting. So, there you go. Take that for what it's worth. All right. That'll do it for me. Hey, listen, I greatly appreciate you guys. If you made it here, I appreciate you. Do me a favor. We really think that this team is going to be special and is going to make a run in the playoff. If you want coverage of this team's entire run, we're going to need to pick up a sponsor or two. I will pimp your business. I will pimp your logo all over our YouTube pages, 2 of them. I will pimp your business all over my social media feeds. Brandon will too, but I'm on the IG, the X. I'm now picking up a bunch of followers on TikTok. I will pimp you all over the place if you'd like to sponsor us so that we can go travel with this team all over the country as the playoffs get going. So reach out if you can. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast or, find me in the atmosphere or ether somewhere and sponsor the show. Hey, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. It's the Real Ones Games podcast. I'll see you when I see you.